Okay, this is her book. This is her book right here. And it's called Remember to Laugh, Nurturing the Soul Inside of Dementia. And so I took the introduction from this, and the introduction was written by Lisa Carter. And as she talks about her journey, she'll tell you a little bit more about Lisa. But it says, author Arlener Steels-Poydras' book, Remember to Laugh, will empower you, the reader, with practical knowledge and understanding about the journey through dementia with your loved one. You will learn how to handle daily struggles and enjoy surprising triumphs along the way. You will gain insight on balancing your life, not allowing dementia to overtake your life as you serve your loved ones. Some of the most important things that you will learn are to value every moment, to laugh at yourself and your loved ones, and to trust that you have done all that you can. Her words are not a technical view of dementia. They represent a view of dementia from the heart and soul that will encourage readers of all backgrounds. And so I thought this was better than just telling you where she went to school and so forth. So Arlener, set the stage for us. Tell us a little bit about your mother, Miss Jetty, before dementia.
Okay, and like she said, we don't want a technical discussion, and we're going to be looking in the chat for questions and conversations. We want to just talk about it because I discovered my mom before dementia was just a funny person. I mean, she could make any situation funny. We called her the queen of the one-liners. And so as dementia started, I didn't know what was going on. You know, I'd go by and her house would be kind of in disarray. And I'm like, that's not mommy. And then there was a season of, she was just angry. She was angry that she wasn't a light-hearted person that I was accustomed to. Every little thing bothered her. I'm like, what? Was she sick or what was going on? But as time went on, I began to pay close attention to the lady that was everybody's funny bone, the lady that was so organized and so meticulous about everything, her home, her appearance, her weight, everything was just different. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. But as I discovered that it was dementia and then got an official diagnosis, I was like, okay, what, who, where, when? I didn't know what to do. And so as I walked this journey with her, I'm like, oh my goodness, I want other people to know what to do. You know, not from a technical medical perspective, but what to do for somebody that you love that's no longer the person that they once were. And you want to love them. You want to watch them closely and you want to do what's right by them. So the Miss Jetty prior to dementia was a hoot. I'm just telling you, she was too much fun. And then even towards the end, as we talked, she was still that same person at the core, in spite of dementia. And a lot of medical people won't tell you that. It's going to be totally different. It doesn't matter. They won't remember. They don't understand. I beg to differ in my experience.
Okay. And I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying, especially those that have had people that have been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's, because they see a change in them. Remember, I told you my grandmother changed bed sheets in a room that nobody slept in. You know, we would always laugh about it. The guest room, nobody ever really slept in. Okay. When you told your siblings about it, was there any denial on their part?
Yeah, there was denial, and then there's always family complications. They don't want to believe it, and because I wasn't around her every day, they just figured it's a part of aging. But it became unnatural, and I mean that in a way that it wasn't the same person. And I have a lot of siblings. I had 6 brothers and 2 sisters. So all those personalities trying to agree on what's best was a difficult conversation. And it went back and forth probably for a year before things got so bad that we had to make some types of decisions. So everybody won't agree, and that's okay. And usually there's one leader, typically 1 or 2 people that are the leaders, and they're going to do all the work. My mother used to say, he that has the goal makes the rules. So he or she that's going to do the work does the work, and everyone else can either help or kind of get out of the way. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, because it gets really hard. When it gets really hard, some people leave. They don't want to play anymore when they see that it's really work. So, and I see in the chat, someone asked, how do you go about getting an official diagnosis? With mommy, she was going to a doctor. I take her to a doctor's appointments, well-woman checkups. She went to the doctor regularly. She took her meds. But when she became different, the regular primary care physician really, I don't think she really knew what she was looking at. So I had to take her to someone else besides her primary care to get the diagnosis that was really the true diagnosis. And so sometimes you have to search out someone outside their regular doctor that's seen them for years and they don't know. So the official diagnosis helps. It validates what you already kind of know, that something's not quite right.
And like you said, the primary care physician, sometimes I think they're in denial too. Physically they're well, but mentally they're not well. And they sometimes said that it's just aging. You know, people always
Yeah.
think it's just aging, and you notice something completely different. If you could go back at the beginning of your mother's diagnosis, what advice would you give someone that's starting this journey?
Wow, that's a big one. The best thing I can say is don't be in denial, because you want it to change, you want it to not be, you want it to not progress. And so just accepting what's going on with grace and being the best support system you can be. Because at first I was in denial. I kind of tried to ignore that things were changing, and it almost cost mother some injuries because I didn't accept it at first. So she one day went into the kitchen one night and set a plastic bucket on the stove, because she was a cooker, turned the fire on and was boiling water in a plastic bucket, and the back of the kitchen burned. Had I accepted what was happening before that incident, probably would not have been. So just accept that it's going to happen, but make the best of what's going on the whole time. No matter what you see or what you hear or how they respond, you know who they are and continue to walk with them through whatever they're going through, whether they're being mean, whether they're being nice, whether they're being funny. Just go with it and realize, if you could flip the script and put yourself in their place, how would you want someone to treat you? Even when you sometimes may be ugly, they're still there. They may not know who you are all the time, or they may not behave like their regular self all the time, but you know who they are and you know what they did for you. So you behave that way, but don't be in denial. And then that's the first thing. And then look forward to creating new memories. I'm not a physician, I'm a math girl, but physicians, they're practitioners. They're practicing and they're learning as they go with people. But for me, I created new memories intentionally. Maybe not for her, but for me. I did things that made her smile. I did things, and when she wasn't smiling and wasn't nice, I was nice to her. And there were good memories for me. So don't be in denial, but create some new memories for you. But then you'll be surprised. As you create these new memories, they remember some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the most inopportune time, it'll come out of their mouth. I'm like, I didn't know she remembered that. The old memories are fading, but you can create some new ones. And every now and then you'll get a glimpse of something that you think they were not paying attention to, and it'll make you smile from the inside out. And it'll reaffirm that I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing it out of love. And I'm going to ignore what I see, what I hear, no matter what it is, and treat them like the person I know that they are, deep, deep, deep on the inside.
Mm-hmm. When I know that you had tried to, keep your mom, in her house one while, with your siblings kind of moving in with her, and then you tried bringing her to your home. When
Yes.
did you finally decide that you needed to put her in a facility, give her a new home? Because it's not just a facility, it's her new home. It's their new home.
Absolutely. We tried several things. I'd go on the weekends and stay. And then two of my brothers actually moved in with her. And are there any guys on the call? I don't see any guys. But guys are not like girls. I mean, we take extra care. And it was really a struggle for them. So it was getting really bad because she was walking away several times. And she would take off walking. No one could turn her around. And she was going home to her old home when we were kids, which was on the other side of town. So she would take off walking. And my brothers would walk with her until she got tired and she'd come back. But then she walked off one time at night. And her neighborhood has changed over the years. Everybody knows her in the neighborhood. She was walking down a very dangerous street, and she was probably 5 miles from home. I think it was midnight or so. And some young folks coming home from partying were driving, and they saw this lady walking in her PJs. And they said, that's Miss Jetty, that's Miss Jetty. So they brought her home. That's when I knew we had to change things. And I brought her to my house. And we thought, my husband's retired. He got this. We're going to do it. We had a good weekend. And then on Sunday afternoon, I said, I'm wondering how my mom was in the chair sleeping. She'd had dinner. She sat on the back porch by the pool. She was good. I was going to run to Walmart. So less than 30 minutes to an hour, I got back. My husband was standing in the driveway. His eyes were this big. My mom was walking up and down the driveway saying, where's her daughter? And she wanted to go home. And he didn't know what to do. It frightened him. And so I said, with me still driving to work, I know he wanted to take on this project. It wasn't going to be a good idea. So I took mom back home, and that's when I started looking for a place for mom, because her safety was the main question, and I had to act. And it was very difficult.
Did you go through a lot of different places? What were you looking for in a facility?
Well, I wanted one that was caring. Mom had been in the hospital for certain things, a stroke here, just nothing major, and high blood pressure. But I spoke to a lady once in the hospital when we were making the decision that time to go ahead and move her to a nursing facility. And the lady said, she's a nurse for a long time. She said, don't be impressed by all the bells and whistles. Don't be impressed that it's a brand new place and it looks real pristine. Don't be impressed with that. Those places, and some places are not as pristine. There's no love in there. They don't really care about the elderly. So be very careful how you choose a place. So my method was choosing a place close where church members could probably go by, and close to where my brothers lived in Fort Worth. So I wanted them to have access to her, the people that were closest. And that's how I selected that place. And it was confirmed by the people that I met when I got there. I talk about it in the book. I get there and I'm sad, I told mom we were going for a ride, So we get to the place. I'd already checked it out, and I'm sad and trying to cry out of one eye so she won't see me crying out of this eye, because I was put in a facility. So we get there, we walk in, and the lady at the nursing home sat down and got my name and started taking paperwork. She said, I know you. I said, yeah, maybe. I have your book. She said, I just moved to the city with my fiance, and he died suddenly. And she got a copy of my book, Flashes in the Fog, and it helped her through her grief. So she had a connection with me. I said, well, my mom, this is my mom. We'll take good care of Miss Jetty. So that made me feel a little better. And then the next step of the way, I was in the foyer sitting around. I saw a church member come in. She was putting her mom in also. And she was about 8 years older than mom, and she was coming in for dementia. They ended up being roommates. So all of that worked out behind the scenes. And I say to you, trust the process. Be very thoughtful, prayerful, and mindful for every decision that you make, and then leave the results to what they are. And you'll find that people will show up that I think on assignment to put you at peace about what you're doing. But always think about everything. Look at every person, every detail. Judge the personality of a person. When I felt like home at that place. And there are other stories in the book that confirms that that's where mom was supposed to be. That's what she was supposed to be. And she was there for 9 months, I think, before we had to move her. But it was the place, and God gave me peace about the people I surrounded her with. So it worked out. It was a struggle. I won't say it was easy, but it was the best thing for her.
I like the fact that you said just because it's new, it may not be the place for them. And you placed her someplace where you thought that her church room, when we had to place our grandmother, we did too. We put her close to the church because we were like, people might come, and visit her. And they did, on their way to church, on their way home or whatever. And the minister lived next door to the church. So he was able to give her communion and so forth. Tell me about your support system. Who is your support system? Because I know they don't always have to be family.
Correct. My support system was small, primarily my husband, who was my right-hand man. And I try, I'm so organized. I tried to make assignments. Don't try this at home. Make assignments to family members. Okay, you go on this day, and with all of my siblings, I figured we could always have somebody there checking on mom. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not for the faint of heart, because not everyone would do that. So primarily my husband, initially a couple of church members, and my mother's pastor's wife was like a good friend to her, and she lived close. So it was basically 3 of us. And you do the best you can, and you make friends along the way. And then I found out as you visit your family member, you meet people there, and you become friends with other people. So when they check on their loved one, they're also checking on yours. And I did the same thing. Excuse me, when I checked on mom, I checked on her roommate, the lady down the hall. Other folks, you build a family of people. And that's why I kind of want to have this conversation. I'm so grateful that you asked, because we don't talk about it as people, because it's not my mother's fault that she got dementia or Alzheimer's. It's not something to be ashamed of. And I found out just in the last, since May, people I have known for years, people I've been very close with, have parents or loved ones that have dementia or Alzheimer's. I never knew. They don't say anything. And if we say something, we can get some tips and ideas and laugh and some pressure relief from talking to someone that's walked the journey. And it strengthens us, and it gives us a refreshment to go back the next day and repeat ourselves. So
because a support system is really important, and it can be very small. But when we had to put our grandmother in the facility, my mother was her only relative there, and she was her mother-in-law. And as life would have it, my mother passed before my grandmother passed. So, I can remember being at work one day, and they called and they had put her in the hospital. So I remember telling the school secretary, I'm on my way to Longview. I don't know when I'll be back. But by the time I made it to get my purse and come back, my neighbors, who had been my neighbors all my life, we never moved in Longview for some reason. We never moved. They never moved. They said, don't come. We're going to the hospital to see me, Mark, because they knew her. And so they went to the hospital, and they called back, and they said, she's back at the facility. She wasn't eating. She doesn't know us, but she wasn't eating, but she's eating now. So that gave me a little sense of peace, because we could not bringing her up here would really be out of her element. So, you do have to have those things. And like you say, you start to meet people, and hopefully people will give us a time when you this is just too hard. This is just too hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it.
I call those my car times, because, depending on the visit and what's going on that week or whatever, you go and you do what you have to do, and you smile and you take care of business, and then you get in your car. You just said, I can't. Not I cannot. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much pressure. And when you get that way, that means you need a rest. You need a break. You need to be good to yourself for just a little while, and then you'll come back refreshed, because giving up is not an option on your loved ones. If you're the main one that's taking care, you can't ever decide that I can't. Just step away for a minute and refresh yourself, and you'll find strength to go back and be whatever it is you need to be for them during that season, because they don't have anyone else. They don't have an advocate. If you have family members or friends that are in like you, that's a blessing. That's really a blessing. But if not, you have to do what you have to do. But while you're doing it, take care of yourself. That sometimes means I'll come home, I'd eat something, I'd lay down and take a nap and say, well, God, if you don't get me up, I'm not getting up. And he gets me up every time, because it's just that important. You don't ever want to feel like if you can't, then you can't. Don't make yourself. Go home and refresh and call a friend, pray up on a friend. Someone will step in and help you. I even had people that live walking distance from the nursing home, and they said they would stop by during the evening hours when I wasn't able to. But they did for a little while, but then they got tired. So I had to find someone else. Giving up is just not an option, because reverse the roles. If it were me, what would I want people to do for me, and how would I want them to treat me, no matter how I'm responding to them?
And you said that your mom stayed in the first facility, her first home, 9 months. Why did you move her?
Well, she moved herself, technically. That facility was not equipped for dementia patients that are active and smart like mom was. You had to have a code to get out of the door. And mom would sometimes sit by the front desk, and she just watched people come and go. And she can hold a conversation with anybody about anything. You would think she worked there. And she watched that code until she learned it, and she got out one time. Even prior to that, her room was located on the back side of the facility. There was a nice sitting area. Her room was over here, her roommate, but there was an exit door in the very back. And the second day I came back to the center, and I looked at that wall, that door. It was furniture and equipment stacked up on that door. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I found out that mom had hit that emergency door two times at night and gotten out. So they had to block the door. And then when she figured out the code, they just weren't equipped to handle her.
Mm-hmm.
She was active and she was smart. So I had to get her in a facility specifically for dementia patients that had those wonder guards and codes all around so they could not get out and walk off because there was a liability to the center. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to move her. And even with that move, there was still someone there, Nurse Lisa, who was a godsend. And her job was not her job, it was her calling. And as I watched the way she treated her patients, she treated mom and the other patients the same way, with attention and love and caring and like a daughter. She would often just order them around like I do, Mom. No, you need to do this, Mommy. She called her Mom or Mama Jetty. So there was love in that facility where Lisa ran the unit.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the importance of touch.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, you know, because a lot of people, I've heard this more than once. A lady told me she made sure she went by and her thing was that she bathed her mother. She said, I want my mother to know that I love her. And she said the touch was the way she felt. She said she could feel my hands on her. Why is that so important?
That's very important because it's kind of like when you go to a doctor's appointment and you know you've gone to the doctor for years, you know you like each other, he's going to do his exam, he's going to look in your ears and all that, but his touch is not the same as my mother's touch. Mm-hmm. And so my mother and I had a relationship, and as her child, I touch her differently. I just feel like they can feel the love coming through that touch. And when I would go and visit her, I would make an effort to hold her hand, walk with her with my arm around her waist, or I would take the little foot spa thing and I would do her feet and, you know, rub her legs and put lotion. But that was my way also of examining her to make sure there were no bruises anywhere. And she was diabetic, make sure that her feet were cared for. And then I would braid her hair or comb her hair and I'm looking for things, you know. And one time I was doing something. She said, ow. I said, what's that? She had a little bump on her head. And it comes to find out she had bumped into a wall, but you couldn't see it for her hair. Had I not been massaging her head, I wouldn't have found that. So, of course, me, being the detective that I am, went straight to the nursing center and said, when did this happen? What is this? I don't care if she breaks a nail. I need you guys to call me. So that personal touch, it's different than the touch of a nurse or a worker. It's a family member that loves you, and you can feel that love through that touch, and it's soothing. It's soothing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes she would grip my hand so hard, you know, on my arm so hard, that let me know, regardless of her stage, she knew my touch and she knew it was different from anyone else that was touching her.
Oh, that's good. And you talk about in your book, you know, making sure, and you just said it, making sure that they're okay. So sort of like when you have children and they come from the daycare, you know, you talk to them or you touch them and you're trying to look and see, you know, make sure nothing went on. But you had some a couple of times where you did have to go over the facility's head.
Yes. There were a couple of times for that. And I don't mind doing that. You know, I try to do it with grace, but my mom, her nickname for me was Steamroller, because whatever the agenda is, if I don't like it, I'm going to roll right over you and anybody that's in my way. And that's the way we have to be with our loved ones. You want good relationships with everyone that you encounter. If you found someone that you don't have a good feeling about, or you see them doing something wrong, you let them know. When something was wrong with my mom, I expected feedback, I expected an explanation, and I expected it immediately because I'm her advocate. And I don't want to do it in a way as to make it difficult for her, because I could not. But there were times when I went above the nurse, and that's after Nurse Lisa had left, because when she left the facility, a lot of love left with her. So I would, at one point in time, I even had to send an email, to all the nurses, the center director, and I also copied my state representative, who happened to be a friend of mine. And boy, oh boy, they got hopping immediately and got things rectified. And I also have a coworker who recently, her mom was in a nursing center for another reason, and she did the same thing. And she ended up, she's trying to get some type of law passed in Austin with regard to nursing homes and who they hire and how they hire, because some mom didn't recover and it had nothing to do with dementia. So whatever you see that you don't like or you don't understand, or you think something's wrong, if something doesn't feel right, you investigate that. If I went in my mom's room and it wasn't pristine, I went down there. I grabbed the bucket off of the cart. Give me some towels. Give me this. I go in there and I start wiping down and cleaning up. And then they would see me doing that, and it would be better the next time. I did not want doing anything for my mother that they didn't want to do. I would do it myself, and they knew I was always coming. And I don't go and make a scene. I just, can I get some water and some towels? Can I get this? Can I get that? You have any Lysol? And I just go and start cleaning up and sweeping and making beds. And they look like, oh, we should have did that earlier. And I know sometimes they get off schedule, but when I see it, I'm going to rectify it. And I don't mind escalating to God and everybody when it comes to your loved one, because they don't have a voice. So my recommendation and go, ask, tell, wait around, phone call, go to corporate, whatever you have to do to make your loved one secure and get a comfort in your spirit that they're being taken care of, do that.
What you had? What was your best tool that you had that you used during this time? I think I know what it is.
I just have to say, y'all, I am who I am. It's prayer for me and my faith, because otherwise, I promise you, I would not be right. And whatever your faith is, because you have to reach deep on the inside when things get really tough and things get really scary. And I was taught that, I've been taught that a long time ago, but when you have to go through difficult things like the death of a child and mommy and all that, you need some strength that you don't have. And when you try to do it in your own strength, you don't have a good support system, you don't have faith, you don't have a hope that goes beyond what you see. You just it'll be difficult. You'll see it in your weight, your attitude, your eating habits, your health. It'll all go down. And I know when you get on a plane, they say, put your mask on first before you can help anyone else. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to help your loved one. You have to be healthy. You can't do everything. So prayer is saying what it is. That's what got me through, my faith. And it's still getting me through today. And I got it from my mama, so it's all good.
You talk about losing a child, and your mother lost a child, but she also lost a grandchild, and it was like bam bam. It was like not a long time in there.
Yes.
And you saw her as being really strong. Did you see her vulnerable at that time?
Yes, and she expressed it in different ways. And thank you for that question, because people often say, well, dementia and Alzheimer's, they creep up on you. They like sneak up on you, and then they're there. But there are things that we can see, and sometimes there are triggers. And I think that for my mother, it was slowly happening because of her high blood pressure over the years and all that. But the trigger was the death of her daughter. That took her to another level. She was a baby daughter. So that was like, it was, she didn't know how to express that. And I saw her be strong and walk through that. And then probably 100 days later, her grandson died. And it was like two blows that she couldn't really process. And she's always been really strong. And I think what she did, she pretended to be stronger than she was. Mm-hmm. And I would go by and she would be in the yard sweeping. How can you sweep the dirt in the backyard? She had a flower bed and all that. She would be out there for hours in the sun, just working in the garden and working. And she would be hot and tired. That was her way of dealing with her grief. But that also pushed her over the edge, in my opinion, from her brain's capacity to process everything that had gone on. And with her brain changing due to the blood flow from the strokes and trauma, that was a trigger. That was the last triggers to me with those two deaths. And after that, it was a rapid pace of decline, and knowing that we had to do something to get her in a better place.
Can you tell us what was a good moment, a joyful moment for you? Because I know there are glimpses of their mm-hmm. old selves as they go. Yes. I can remember my grandmother would give my kids something, and it would be something that they didn't want. But I would always tell them, you tell her, yes, ma'am. Yes. Because at that moment, she might, remember everything. So I don't care if you don't want it. We're going to take it home and, put it someplace or whatever. But what was a good moment for you and your mom during this journey?
One of my biggest, it wasn't a fear, one of my biggest heartaches or times of tension was when I was going to be traveling. I traveled a lot for work, and I would go for 2 or 3 days and I'm back, or 2 days and I'm back. I do a 1-day trip. Well, I had to go to India, Coimbatore, India. I had to be there for at least 10 days, probably 2 weeks. And so I was dreading leaving mommy for that long, because what she would do, she would rub her hands over her braids. If the braids were fuzzy, she'd get antsy. She didn't know what was going on, but her braids were getting fuzzy. And the fuzzier they got, she knew it'd been a longer time since I'd been there. And for 2 weeks, I knew it was going to be a lot. And I'm on the other side of the world. What am I going to do? So I was dreading going there to tell her that I'm going to be gone for a while. And I lined up people to braid her hair, but she know the difference between, she'll say, some girl braided my hair, but it wasn't you. So she know the difference between me doing it and someone else. So I had knots in my stomach. I went to the nursing center. I'm leaving the next day. I went in mommy's room and she wasn't there. So I figured she was in the day room. I went down there. I just don't know how I'm going to leave my mom for this long. So I get in the day room and I hear music. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was, I don't know who it was, this song called Get Down On It from back in the day, the 70s. So I heard this song, I get in the room and the music is loud and I'm looking, where's my mom? She was sitting in a chair and she was just bobbing her head and dancing in the chair. I said, hey girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you dancing? I like that song. I said, well, let's get down on it then. So I pulled up the chair and we danced in the day room. I said, well, mommy, I'm going out town. Girl, that's okay. Go get down on it. I'm having fun and be a good girl. And all her normal things started spilling out of her mouth. And so I was able to skip out of the nursing home that day, happy and joyful that my mom knew I was leaving. She was having a good day and we left on a high note. That to me was an amazing grace moment for me, where I was given the peace that I needed to go and do what I had to do and come back and things would be okay. And they were. That was one of the funniest moments. And she was late stage dementia. And she was just as happy as she could be through music.
When you wrote the book, what were you hoping you'd accomplish with it? Was it something for you, or was it something for people that needed to hear this?
It was a couple of things. As mom was going through her decline, I wanted to remember all the stories that she told me on repeat. And I tell you, they'll be on repeat, they'll be on repeat. And so instead of looking at repeat as I've heard that before, I didn't ever say that. I just tried to remember the stories that she told me and the things that she would say. And later on, I would repeat those same things to her when she wasn't quite there, and it would spark something in her. But it was threefold. First of all, I wanted to remember the things that she taught me and write those down. I don't want to lose them. And then secondly, I wanted anyone that's taking care of any loved one, whether it's dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, whatever, for them to know that there is a way to do it, to find joy in it, to be free in it, and to free them and let them know how much they're loved, and never discount. Take medical advice, yes, of course, but know that you know the person that you love is still in there. And I wanted to provide credible evidence of mommy, the original mommy, showing up when I didn't expect her to. When the doctor says she will not show up, she will not remember. It doesn't matter. There was always times it'll just come out of her mouth, and she knows. So I wanted to tell her story. I want to encourage someone that's taking care of someone not to give up, not to be discouraged. Refresh yourself and get back in the game and be an advocate for your loved one, because I don't care what the doctors say, they're still in there. And mommy was still in there to the very end. The soul of a person, the heart of a person, the love that you have for them, it's always there, even when they can't hear you. I know you've heard doctors say, well, you can talk to them, but they won't hear you. I once had an experience with a nurse there. She was a hospice nurse, a young woman who had taken care of her grandmother. And she decided this is what I wanted to do. I think she was 24. We were talking one day. I heard her in the room and I came back and she was just talking. And she said, you should talk. They hear you. She said, I've been doing this for years. Keep talking. They hear you. They know what you're saying. They can't express themselves, and sometimes it makes them angry, but they can hear you. So I wanted mom's story to be known to those that may be going through this. I also wanted someone that's taking care of someone to know there is hope. Don't ever give up. Don't believe everything that you hear, and don't believe everything that you see. You be who you are to your loved one regardless, and it'll be a blessing to you in the end. And then lastly, I wanted people to be a little educated, because when you start the journey, you're like, okay, let me look this up on the internet. What do I do here? What do I do here? How do I do this? How do I respond? I put it all in one package. It's not complete. It's not a medical journal, but there are tips there that will help you find your way through and make it better for your loved one.
And I just want to remind everybody that you can ask questions in the chat if you have any. When I think about different things on the title of the book, and it is about dementia, but it is called Remember to Laugh. And why did you name it Remember to Laugh?
You know, I thought about that. Thank you for asking that question, because I love people and I want people to be encouraged, and I don't ever want to offend anyone. And first I took Remember to Laugh off. And then I thought about it. Well, you know, laughter is medicine for the soul. And sometimes I have to laugh in order not to cry. And then I thought about my mother and her one-liners, and she loved to laugh. So through all that someone goes through in caring for a loved one with anything, take time to just laugh. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. When we were talking on the phone, I've talked to some other folks since then. We started talking about stories and things that went on with dementia, and we just laugh and we have commonality. And I got the phone refreshed. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I miss my mother. I was having a sad day, but I was just laughing about all the stuff that she did. So remember, with all that you're doing, watch some funny movies. Mother used to watch cartoons, even if she loved cartoons. Laughter is good. And you're not laughing at what you're going through. You're laughing through it because you know there's hope in the situation, and you're creating new memories, and you are loving on that person and touching on them, and they know in their spirit who you are, even though they can't verbalize it. And you never know. They just might verbalize it at the most inopportune time that they know. They'll get a moment of clarity, and something will come out that will just make you happy. So I want people to find laughter, and and if we create community and start talking about it, we can call someone who we know that is going through the same thing. We can talk about what we're doing, the sad times and the good times, and just relax and walk with that person closely. But laughter is good for me. Mother loves to laugh, and I still laugh often.
I told you I was reading your book, and when you said that part about her remembering the code, I just burst out laughing. I was like, now they think she can't remember anything. I can't remember the code to my house sometimes. I'm out there just punching buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But she remembered the code to get out. Through this journey, do you have any regrets?
Absolutely none. I really don't have any regrets. You question your decisions. Putting your loved one in a nursing center, that's, I had to tell myself that's better than her walking the streets at night in a neighborhood that's changed and not everybody knows her and they're not friendly. That's better than her almost setting the house on fire. That's better than her falling in the bathroom. And I was waiting for her to show up at church. This before we knew she had dementia. She had fallen and she couldn't get up. So it's better. So I don't have any regrets. I don't regret the time I took off work and the times I grabbed my laptop and I worked in the nursing home. I know they were so tired of me. That here she come again. I will post up with my laptop and I'm just working away and I'm watching everybody, not just mommy. I'm watching other folks' mommies too, to make sure that things, I don't regret the time I took off work. I don't regret all the doctor's appointments. I don't regret the times I wouldn't let the nursing home take her to the doctor. I drive over and take her to an appointment because that's my mother. I don't want her treated as, just anybody. She's somebody to me. So I take her to her appointments. I don't regret that. I don't regret the times that when during COVID, that was horrible. That's when the major decline started. So we would do the Zoom calls and we would do those things. And that's the lack of human interaction, not just for mommy, across this country with folks that were in senior citizen facilities, rehab facilities, that lack of human touch and human interaction from someone whose hands love you, that took a very deep toll on not only mommy, but several elderly folks that were in the nursing home. So I don't regret myself nagging these people and calling 3 and 4 times a day and wanting more than one Zoom and showing up at the window to look at my mom. And then I even took a big gift basket of goodies to the nursing home with snacks and treats wrapped in nursing, special wrapping, and they enjoyed that because I want them to be nice to her. And not everybody that's working there is called to work there. Some people, it's a paycheck. They don't care about the elderly. They don't care about anything. But there are those like Lisa that are called to do that, and you can spot those people. So I have no regrets, none whatsoever. And even at this point, I recently had lunch with my brothers, who I love dearly. And they're still a bit, all men are mama's boy. I don't care. I had 6 brothers, all of them were mommy's boys, but they weren't as active. And they have regrets that they weren't as active in the touching and the feeling. And it was, oh, I can't go to the nursing home. I can't see mommy like that. I don't like going there. Well, you know what? It's not about you. What would you want someone that loved you to do for you if you were in that situation? So I have none, absolutely none.
You talked about routine, and that was something that got me. You said, you would bring her the snacks,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't about a long visit, but it was like a visit every so often. So
Mm-hmm.
how important is a routine?
What I discovered with the routine is it created new memories because I know what mother liked. She liked Pepsi, Little Debbie snack cakes, and bananas. So I would go. Every time I go, I had those 3 items. And then I began taking her roommate Coke. So she liked Coke and bananas. So I take that. That was her surprise. And then I have the same routine. We would sit outside in the sun, eat our snacks. When we got back to her room, I pull out the foot massager, I do her feet, braid her hair, we play music. She got used to a routine. And after a while, someone that couldn't remember anything, what you bring me? You know what I like. Where's my stuff? You know what I like. She remembered the new routine, and that kind of goes against what you expect. She began to expect those things, and when she didn't get those things, something was off. If I were out of town for more than a week and she didn't get that, something was off. Nurse Lisa would let me know, and what it was, the routine was off. And even got to the point where I pick her up and we go riding on Sunday. She'll say, "Well, I got to get back now. They're looking for me. I got to go home." I never thought she would refer to the nursing center as her home. And she did. And she'd walk in, you think she was the queen. "Hey y'all, I'm back. Hey Miss Jetty." It became her home. The routine is so important to them because they remember it and then they expect it.
One thing that you said, and they got me, is like a mother's love. We have that intuition, like
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong with my child. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, they're at school, nobody called you or whatever. And you come to find out that they fell, they hit their head, or they did
Yes.
something. And you said, in your book, you had a brother that they diagnosed, and
Yes.
like 3 weeks later, he was transitioning, and your
Yes.
mother knew.
Yes. It was one of those, shocking things. Death is always shocking, but my brother was just going to the grocery store and he got back in his car and he didn't know how to open his car door and his wife had to drive him home. From there he ended up in ER and within 3 weeks he passed away from brain cancer that no one knew he had. He just had a physical less than 6 months earlier. So that morning they called and I went to the hospital with my sister-in-law Lisa and her son. They were there and we were just there, just waiting and hugging and loving on each other. And then my brother was passing. It was blood pressure was like 40 over something. And I said, well, I got to take a walk. So I took a walk and I got a call from Nurse Lisa. She said, "Miss Arlener, I don't know what's wrong with Miss Jetty May." She called Miss Jetty May. "She's been pacing the hallway all morning. She's being mean and her blood pressure is spiked." I think she said it was 190 over. It was really high, something ridiculous. And it's stroke level. So we're going to probably send in the ambulance and send her to the hospital because we can't get it down with medication. I said, "Nurse Lisa, let me tell you what's happening. My brother Anthony, who lives next door to my mom, is passing away. And I think the fact that his blood pressure was here and hers were here, just the opposite, she felt that. And so I said, when I get done here, I'll be right there, I promise. Let me go back to the room." When I walked into the room, my brother just passed away. It was right around noonish, I think. So I stayed there for a couple more hours, got that all settled, drove to the nursing home, and I walked in, and there was mommy walking the hallway. She walks really fast. She's walking the hallway. And I walked up on her, and her vision is kind of blurred. I said, "Miss Jetty, what are you doing? You being a good girl? One of my sons is missing. One of my sons is missing." I said, "No, Mom, I just saw them. All those knuckleheads are just fine." I felt no reason. She didn't really believe me. She just grabbed my hand. I said, "They're fine. They're big cray cray. They're your boys. They're crazy. They're spoiled. They're fine. They're all fine. I just saw them." And we just walked up and down the hallway, holding hands, and the blood pressure went tick, 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 tick. I never told her. I didn't tell her about the funeral because that wasn't popular because why traumatize her for something she won't remember?
Mm-hmm.
So she knew what was going on. One of her sons was missing. That just blew me away because I say in my book, Flashes in the Falls, there's an unexplainable connection between a parent and a child. And that unexplained connection was demonstrated by my mom, and it just broke my heart. But when I went back the next day and the next even after the funeral, she was Miss Jetty, just her normal self. But every now and then she'll ask about her boys, and I just said they're fine. Or she'll ask about my son, her grandson. I said, Mama, he's grown and gone. That's all I say. Kids grow up and they move out. He's grown and gone. I never re-traumatized her with something that would hurt her for a moment that she won't remember. It's just not that important. So yeah, that was amazing to me. And there is a good connection there. Motherhood, even with me, when I would take her to church and she wouldn't remember the church until we get there and we sit down and they start playing songs. And, I try to cry out of one eye where she can't see me. She'll tuck my arm under her arm like she did when I was a little girl, and she wouldn't let it go. She knew that I was feeling something, sadness probably, but the mother in her kicked in. And this is late stage dementia. So I go back to, no matter what your eyes see, what your ears hear, they may be mean to you every now and then. Who's in there? Who raised you? Who helped you? Who that person is, you know who they are. They might not know who you are, but treat them like you know who they are, regardless as to what goes on. So that was amazing to me.
You said something too that got me. You said when they look in the mirror, they don't know who they're looking at because they're looking at themselves 50 years ago.
Yes.
And so they're not seeing that person. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, you can put it in the chat room, or you can have Miss Arlena unmute you, and so you can just talk to us about it. Recently on CBS Sunday Morning, they had a thing on dementia because I saw somebody wrote that their dad was having a lot of things. He was forgetting a lot of things. The man on CBS Sunday Morning was only 50 something when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And he did not know his wife. She was still able to keep him at home, but he did not know her. But he started to court her again.
Yeah.
And then he decided to ask her to marry him again. And they had a wedding. And the next day it was back to, he didn't even know who she was again. But she said he created that memory for her. She said, that's a memory for me. She said, I will remember this. He won't, but I will remember. So I think about those things where you say you create new memories. So you have new memories with your mom. I don't see anybody else that has any questions.
You can also raise your hand. And on creating memories, also, that's, they live in the past of a long time ago in the beginning. And so for my mom, I would try to play music from the past. I would repeat her stories that she would talk about in the past. As she was a little girl, I would say, you sit in the sunshine and you make your playhouse in the sunshine, and then you had all your imaginary dolls, and then your mom would get mad at you because you were sitting in the sun, and you would say, the sun never did anything to me. So the story she repeated, I repeat to her. I would go back and play old music from her time, and she would enjoy that. And it would bring back memories to her. And then photo books, like you were saying, Yolanda, photo books is really good. But then toward the end, she didn't care about that. She just wanted the hands of the person that was caring for her on a regular basis.
Somebody just said they can't wait to read the book. I called her when she told about the book, and then I ordered it on from Amazon. And when I got it, I told her, I said, we need to do this Zoom. People need to know this. The medical part we're going to get. The medical part, but we don't know how people react, and everybody reacts differently. Your loved one will react differently. But go to Amazon, and this is her third book. But you can get it from Amazon. Share it with somebody that may need it and they don't know how to ask. Yes. We get embarrassed about things. We get embarrassed. One story, and he did have dementia, but my sorority sister took her dad out, she and her husband, and her dad had an accident there, and they were trying to get him out. She said the nicest man came up and said, do not be embarrassed. It is what it is. I will help you get him out. He's embarrassed. Don't make it worse for him. Yes. So sometimes we just have to talk to people. It says, how did you approach the question about your mother with your siblings?
Well, the mama's boys that love her dearly wanted her to stay home. And so when they started having to walk with her for 45 minutes to an hour, because she was an avid walker around the park every day, And they would say, Mom, this is your home, stay home. She would get angry and she'd just take off walking. So they would take turns walking with her a long time in the sun, and then she'd make it back home. And then so we put a fence around the front yard, a wrought iron fence, so that she could just walk out and she could sit outside. Well, Mama climbed the fence. She got a stool, put it next to the fence, climbed over the fence to go home. So when I approached them about her disease and what needs to happen, they were more receptive because they were living it. At first, they were not. Then they were living it. And so it was easy to get them to agree. And, sometimes you don't have to agree. Sometimes, as the second oldest in the family, I just had to make a decision. And it eventually worked out well. It's for her best. And someone else had put in the chat, what services would have been helpful to you during your time of care? One thing that's missing, and it wasn't in the center that we had. It wasn't in either one of the centers. The research and the things I learned online. It would be nice if there was an advocate or one time a week where the family members of folks that have dementia get together and ask questions of the staff or someone that has experience in dementia and what to expect and kind of the various stages of it. And it's different when you read it online, when you talk to someone that's lived it and cares for people. But everyone's so busy taking care of patients and all that. There was never a time to just sit and talk where you got information as a group of people with parents or loved ones with dementia. That would be great to have. I wish I'd had that. It would have helped me as I was surprised in the different stages and things started happening that I didn't really understand. And I was hoping never would happen, but it happens. Sometimes it takes longer for some people and sometimes it's shorter, but dementia, Alzheimer's, it happens and it just happens. So thank you for those questions.
Okay. I don't see any more questions. Would you like to leave us with anything?
Thank you all so much for joining. And my hope is that we begin to talk about it. As my husband would say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it with people, because I've learned so much about folks that are just doing it on their own and they feel like there's no hope, there's no one to talk to, they're shooting from the hip. But if you walk them out in the shoes, you can help someone. So my hope is that people will start talking about it and talking about it and encouraging one another and laughing about it, because it's some funny stories sometimes looking back. And I appreciate those now because I don't have them anymore. So just remember, first of all, be a strong advocate. Let no one get in your way. If someone gets in your way and you're doing the right thing for your loved one or something's not right, you take it all the way to the top to whoever will listen. And then if they won't listen, get your sign to stand outside that nursing home. I bet they will. Whatever it needs to make sure that people, not only your loved one, but people are safe. So talk about it. Take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. And in taking care of yourself, sometimes it means I cannot. I have a friend of mine that has an autistic son and he's grown, but sometimes he says, Mom, I cannot. So if you cannot, go home, lay down, refresh, and trust that somebody will do something for a while and let you get your bearings back. And then you come back strong and you do it again. But take care of yourself, watch some funny movies, call some friends that you can laugh with and they understand your story, and you keep living. Create those memories, touch on them, love, and even those that are not your loved ones. You go to a nursing home, there's some people that don't get visitors. They don't get visitors. I read their stories on the wall and I call them by name. And as I go down the hallway, I'm touching and hugging if they'll let me to. And Mama say, that's my daughter. Well, good. I know. I'm glad you remember today. But love on some people that are going through this and their families. Make friends with folks. So if they're checking on their loved ones, they know your name. They're peeping your parents' room, make sure things are okay. Build a community. Let's talk about it. And I thank you all for joining the call. I thank you for those that have purchased the book. If it's helpful to you, write a review on Amazon or share it with somebody, please.
And just before we leave, I'm going to read from her book again. This is how we're going to close. She said, my experience in walking with Mommy on her journey with dementia and the lessons I learned from them are not based on scientific research, medical dissertations, or an analysis of the brain or body. Instead, they are based on something much deeper. And she put love, and I said faith, because throughout her book, she talks about her faith. Thank you again for joining us. And if you, you can go to, like we said, Amazon and purchase the book. Thanks.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.